Hello everybody and welcome. This is part 2 of getting organized in the craft room, and I'm going to give you a tour of my art supplies and my stash and hopefully inspire you with some tips and tools and ideas of how to get organized in your craft space. My name is Shauna Robeson with Creating Space Coastal, and I was a professional organizer for over 11 years, so I do enjoy actually organizing stuff. But I enjoy creating stuff more, and I want to be able to get to my stuff as soon as I need it, have it at my fingertips. So hopefully I can give you some ideas of how to do that for yourself, if that's going to help you be more creative. All right, let's get to it. So this is my workbench. This is actually an IKEA base cabinets for the kitchen, and I've actually used it in several different configurations, but now it is my art bench. And it's about 8 feet long, so it has a lot of space, but as you can see, I have it all full. There's my camera rig. I'm so happy with my new rig. It doesn't take up my whole space because I used to have my tripod on there. I'm preparing for this Friday's class. These are things that are not art supply related that I'm going to use for art. And then this is the project I was working on, my vision board for the year. So those are projects that I am working on. So you can see I don't always have everything put away neatly, but I do have a place for everything. So in here, these are just a bunch of different miscellaneous craft tools that I grab frequently. So it's right in my quick spot right next to my main chair. And then under here I have cutting tools, so everything related to cutting, and that's always handy to have nearby. I have generic embellishments, and this was more of one of those, if I need something, it's right there and it fits here, but it's not something I use as much. These are a variety of different tapes that I might use, and this is miscellaneous ephemera and paper stuff that I might use for collaging. So just miscellaneous collage materials. And as you can see, one thing I want to point out, these are very deep cabinets. They go back quite a bit. So what I did to maximize the space is I used a very deep, let me pull it out. I used a very deep bin. So it literally goes all the way back to the back of this shelf. If I push it all the way back, that's all the space I'm wasting. So I'm maximizing the space. Again, this is the same thing. It's a very long, a very deep bin. It's as deep as I could find that would fit in this space. And you can see that I adjust the shelf so that it just fits above it. I'm not wasting any space. I have just a little height here in case there's things that stick out the top, but I'm not wasting a lot of space. I oftentimes will add shelves to my systems just to maximize the space. Okay. Another drawer over here. This is, and I even have it labeled. Labeling is one of my tips. I'm going to do, at the end of this video, I'll be doing a top 10 tips. So stay tuned for the final top 10 tips of organizing. But one of them is labeling. And this is all drawing supplies. So I have measuring and drawing, I would say, because that's all related, drafting tools, whatnot. This is just to be able to see. All right, and then down here I have my watercolors. This is what I get ready for my monthly watercolor meetup. I have all the supplies related to that here, so I can just easily grab it. And then below that I have my embossing. This is the heat embossing tools. And down here I have extra watercolor stuff that I'm not using all the time, but I have it available near my watercolors so I can get to it. All right, then if I pan around behind me when I'm sitting at my desk, I have these two carts, and I want to get far enough away so you can see. They're right behind me. I'm gonna back up so you can see what's in them. Okay, so this is what it looks like, and I actually used to have my grill on this outside, and I cleaned it all up because I decided I needed more stuff near me at my desk. So I've used this little turntable to store all of my mediums and adhesives and things that I use frequently. I have some baby wipes, which is handy, my spray inks, I have some aerosols, and then I have miscellaneous papers that I might want to add to journals. And then on top, I have these little divider, they're really thick divider, like cardboard things. I don't know, cardboard's not the right word, but it's like a thicker cardstock than typical dividers. And it's not a folder, it's just a divider. And I don't even remember where I got these, but they worked perfectly for this. I just have this metal organizer. I don't know if you can see that. It's like this mesh, and it's designed for organizing and in the office. I have another one down here for my books. And I like it because it has, the dividers are really high. So you can see they come up really high, so they really hold everything together. And it gives me some space in between so that I can fit quite a bit. So what I did is all the things that I use frequently or want on my fingertips that fit in this area, I was able to organize here. So I have all my mats, cutting like my foam mat for stamping, my embossing mat. So just a variety of different things that I can have at my fingertips. And then stuff that I just regularly use for my journaling. I have all my brushes in different jars and whatnot, and handy inks. So these are things that I'm going to be using fairly frequently, and I just want really accessible. And I can always just move it out of my way if I want to put it, if I have guests over, because this is my living room, guys. The whole place is our studio. Okay. So if I have guests over, what I do is I would just roll this right into my bedroom, and then we'd have this, open space for guests to come. Now I have this other smaller cart. This was a foldable cart, and this is my current projects cart. So anything that I'm currently using for class, I can just put on these 3 layers. I have 3 layers that are always open for anything that I need that I'm going to be currently working on. So that's what all that stuff is. And it folds up, so if I'm not doing any projects, I could just fold it and tuck it away as well. And I can just also roll it into my bedroom if I have guests. Oh, and then on the wall, I have a hook. This is the 3M, what are they called? I'll have to try to remember the 3M hooks, but basically you can put them anywhere. And I use those a lot. Like I'll put hooks everywhere. So that's my binoculars. I have put hooks on every surface I can. I have some measuring tools back there, and these are all those 3M adhesive hooks, which I can't think of the name of at the very moment that I need to know them. Okay, so that's my busy workstation where I have everything that I mostly need, and I'm just gonna pan back a little bit so you can see that whole section. And then that is a window, so I can look out and have nice inspirations outside if I need. Now I've also modified the cart with, I've added some hooks to hang things on. Sometimes I'll dry my brushes here over the trash can. I put some screws here so I can hook a trash bin to the cart. So, feel free to modify things as you need to. I put this little, these are little cloth dryers. You can just, if you have some wet rags, you can hang them over this, and then you can tuck them away once they're dry. So modify as you need. Bungee cord makes a great paper towel rack. So I totally MacGyver the heck out of things. So highly recommend doing that. Now, oftentimes, if I'm not working at my desk, I will bring little projects over here into my TV room, which is just like a hop, skip, and a jump. But I wanted to just show you guys some ideas for organizing. Under here, I have a little tray that I just keep a current project in. So it's just right underneath the couch, and it can tuck under there. And so when I'm, I usually color while we're watching a movie or something. I also have underneath this bin little TV trays that we use to have our meals, and those can pop out when I need them. Sorry about the camera work, but it's hard to hold it and do stuff, and I don't have a cameraman. All right, back to more goodies. Now, these shelves, so I have 5 of these cabinets. These are Besta, IKEA Besta cabinets, and what I like about these is they're fairly tall, and I don't know the exact dimensions, but they're also deep. They're deeper than a typical, they're like, I think 15 inches deep, so they have a lot of depth to them, and they can hold bins and things that other typical bookshelves, which are usually only about a foot deep, can fit. So I like that about them. The other thing I like about them is that you can always buy extra shelves because they sell everything piecemeal. So I always add shelves to maximize the space. You can see I don't have a lot of space between each of my sections. So here I have all my books, and I do have them sorted by topic. So I have a drawing section, I have my calligraphy section and journaling. I have kind of together, and then I have mixed media, I have acrylics, and then this is more of like inspirational type books that I might want to look at. And then all of my watercolors are down here because I have more of those, and a few other inspirational books. And then I have all of my paper. So along with books is paper. I kind of keep all the paper together. And so I have all my papers organized by color, and I do label them. These say SU because it was Stampin' Up, but I used to have a lot more of these, but I've narrowed them down and I haven't relabeled them. But I used to have them sorted by thinner paper, and then cardstock was separate. And now I just do it by color because I've thinned out my paper supply so much. I also have 8.5 by 11 because these ones are the 12 by 12s. And then these ones are the 8.5 by 11. And that's just one of those sorters that I placed sideways, and I can organize my cardstock. Most of that's just cardstock. And then below that, I have a lot of specialty papers that are organized here. And then I have these little project pouches for specialty things. Like I have a section on like some vintage stuff. And then I have animal prints, and then butterflies and critters. So those are just some outliers that I wanted to have separate. I have some magazines, you know, collage materials, ephemera, old books that I might use for collage and whatnot. And then I have anything that I cut out already. I put in one of these bins just to keep it from getting bent and whatnot. You can also put something like this in a binder with page protectors. So if you wanted to organize your little cutouts by topics, you could put it in, and I'll show you an example of what I mean, because I have this little project binder. I feel like this camera zooms in a lot, so I have to hold the camera like really far away to see. Okay, so these are projects that I've had in the past, and I just put extra pieces of them in here. They're die cutouts or whatever by theme, and it's just page protectors with a piece of cardstock in between just to stiffen it up a little bit. And then I put the little pieces in between, and that way I can just find these little pieces and projects when I need to by theme. I use that system a lot for a variety of things like stencils and whatnot too. Okay, back to the paper. I also, when I have pieces of paper, smaller pieces, these ones are kind of the bigger strips of paper, and I like to use everything. So I just organize them by Roy G. Biv. That's the rainbow colors. I do neutral, and then red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. So I just have them all organized by that, and then I can find scraps of paper that I have cut from, but I don't want to just throw away that scrap. I can find it there. In addition to that, I have these ones are small blocks of paper, and then I have these other ones that are more like the card size. So I have them organized by size of scraps, and I can go back to them anytime to use them. I have some washi tape here, just because that's a little bit different than those other tapes that I have in the drawer. This is more of a decorative tape, and I think of it more like decorative paper, so I put it there. And then I have some this is just a big block of designer paper that all goes together. So I just put it together on this little shelf, and there you go. So that's my paper section. This is just some greeting cards that I have that I could either use or sell or give as gifts, and I just organize them on that in case I go to a craft fair or something. But that's not how I would organize them first. If I was trying to fit them all in, I actually have this little organizer that I would put them in that is designed specifically for organizing cards. Okay, we'll get to some of those organizing. I think what I'll do is probably set up the tripod separately and show you some of these containers separately, because I have to stand so far apart for you guys to see. So I'm going to set the tripod up in a little bit and I'll show you more of the details, but I'll just give you the overview. So I have a lot of the canvases, the like painting paper and things like that. This is all used for painting. These are drying racks that I use. They're actually for cooling racks for baking, but I use them for drying things. And I have some protective tablecloths and stuff that I can use to protect surfaces. So that's for drying projects. And they're stackable, so they stack up, which is really nice. I have several different cutting tools, and each of them has a different purpose. They function differently. So that's the reason I keep more than one. Like this actually has a designer tool that goes with it. It's a roller blade. This is the slider blade, and then this one's a roller blade that can do more sheets. So they all have different functions. I used to have a lot more cutters. I'm like, you know what? I don't need a cutter that does exactly the same thing as this other cutter. So I thinned the herd a little there. And then I have some sewing supplies, which I use mostly for crafts, not sewing, but sometimes I have to mend things. These are protective little puppy pads for protecting my surfaces. And then this is the tracing light box that's really old, which is why it's bulky. But mostly I have in this whole, all the way down, these are mostly like my acrylic paints and painting supplies. I have my adhesives here. This is all adhesives in this little tote. So I could just grab the whole bag of adhesives, bring it to my workstation, and I'm good to go. And you'll notice that most things are in a container that I can just pull it and go, because I'm not working at this, I'm not going to be working right here where these shelves are. I'm going to be actually working over at my table. So I try to put them in containers so I can grab the whole bin of whatever it is and bring it to my workstation if necessary. Up here I have my shimmer. So this is like my glitter and glitter glues and things like that. Anything that's kind of shimmery. And then this is cards and envelopes. I have some more cards and envelopes here. I have various eyelets and metal things like wire brads, eyelets, all of those things live here. Now I used to have those all in an IKEA drawer system, but the drawers didn't come out. And like I said, I have to go work somewhere else. So I don't want to have to, you know, grab one thing and not be able to get all of the things that I need that are related. So this way I can just grab these little bins and take them over to my workspace. This is an extra light. This is for organizing cards. Things, I'm just filling any space that I have and sometimes. Okay, these are just little bins, and they have, I did put little magnets on these flowers to put them on the front so I could tell what was in there. And that's exactly what it is. These are just the neutral colored little flowers, and then these ones are the colorful ones. And I have some beach sand and these guys, and this one is little rhinestones and whatnot. So and that was a nice visual way to store those where I can see what it is, but it's, you know, it's a little prettier than the labels are, even though I have labels everywhere. And then I have my inks. These are my stamping inks, and then below that I have more ink pads, and then I have my well inks for dip pens and whatnot. My hot glue gun and gilding, those are both heat type tools. I have those together. These are storage containers. I like to use the clear bins because I can see what's in them. If I don't label them, it's because I can see exactly what is in there, and I know what it is. So I don't have to put a label on it. These down here are my punches, my die cut and punches stuff. So these are die cuts, these are punches, everything related to that. These are embossing folders, and all of these are related to either doing embossing or doing die cutting with paper. And I use this tool that's down here too. So I keep all of my die cut stuff down here with that. And then I have my stencils here, which actually you can do embossing with stencils as well. And I'll just show you how I organize those. I just put them in. This is a homemade one that I made out of hot glue gun. But I just, again, put a sheet of paper in between just so that I can see, and I can put at least two stencils per page, because I can see it between, because the page is between there. And then sometimes I'll put a bunch of similar stencils together. If they're all kind of along the same line, I'll just throw them all in. So that's one way you can organize your stencils. And like I said, you can actually create embossing with stencils with your Big Shot. And one of these days I'll show you how. All right. This is an example of when you want to put something back. Now, if I had two hands, it would be easy to do, but because I moved something, other things fell over, and that's okay. In this case, it's not too big of a deal. If I had two hands, I'd be able to get them back in line pretty easily. But the easier it is to get things in and out, the easier it is going to be for you to put things away, and the more likely you're going to straighten your space. So I always recommend trying to make it pretty easy, not having things tumbling. These are all stacked together, which is fine because I usually am looking at all of them at the same time, because they're my punches. So I'm okay that they're stacked 3 high because I'm maximizing space by doing it. And it's not too big of a deal because they're close to the ground. I can just pull them out and sort which one that I want. So, but I limit my stacking, except for in this case. These are all of the wood block stamps that I have. Have them all labeled, and the best way to do it is to stack, because I don't have a wall to be able to set them up. Some people have those walls where you can see them single file along the wall, and I don't have enough wall space to do that. So this works well for me, and it's not too bad to pull them out. I have them labeled so I can tell where it goes and which one I need to put back. The other tip for this, if you have this type of organizing, is I actually stamp on a sheet of paper everything that's in this bin. So I put it exactly where it goes in the bin. So when I want to put something back, all I have to do is look at the top of these plastic bins, and I'll be able to see exactly which bin it goes in. I can also use the code that I have on the front. Now this is a miscellaneous one, so I wouldn't necessarily know, but I have it by texture, have it nature, celebration, so I try to keep it, obvious where they might go. This is also related to stamping. I try to keep my related things together. This is for drying the stamps. After I wash them, it's nice to let them air dry, and especially when I use the acrylic stamps, the thin stamps that don't have the blocks, because they can stick to the surface, especially with these ones, the clear stamps. So I have my stamps organized also using labels by themes, and that way I can easily find, whatever I'm looking for. And I do it by how I use them. So if I'm making a greeting card, for example, I know exactly, what type of theme I'm going to be wanting to use it for. I have some odd sized stamps, and those go in here. And then these are the blender tools for the stamps. This is the clear acrylic blocks for the stamps. So again, I try to keep things related together. I've got my stamp pads here. I've got my stamps over here. So if I'm going to work on a project where I'm doing stamps, I just have to go to one area and I'll be able to find everything that I need. Okay. Below that, I have on this side, this is all my alcohol ink stuff. So alcohol markers, and then my alcohol inks. And then I have my pencils on this side. And and again, I'll bring out some of these to show you the details of how I have them organized in a minute. But, and then I have markers and, you know, just miscellaneous markers that are on this side. And then I have pastels. And this is actually it's not in a place that makes sense. Well, it's for using the well inks, which are right here. So it's not on the same shelf, but it's not too far away, and it just fit there better than it did anywhere else. So sometimes the fit wins. And then there's my Big Shot or Big Kick, that's for all the die cuts and whatnot. Up at the top, I have my fibers and laces and things like that, and then these are just like cleaning cloths and stuff like that. So, and that pretty much is most of my stash. I do have a Zing Air die cut machine, which I haven't used in a few years, and I don't know if I'm going to be using it, but I'm going to try to push myself to use it, because if I'm not going to use it, I want to get rid of it. So I want to make sure that I'm not going to use it before I get rid of it, because it's a big ticket item that I don't want to have to replace if down the road I decide I want it. So I'm just giving you kind of the big picture view of all of my stash. But the die cut machine's in a separate room because I haven't used it. It's set up on a table where I can actually use it if I need to, and that will help me use it, hopefully. All right, so some final tips. I'm going to go through some of my top 10 tips for getting organized in the craft room. The first thing is reduce your stash. I mean, that's really going to be the easiest way to simplify the organizing process. The less stuff you have, the easier it's going to be to store it. I mean, that's just the bottom line. There's no way around that. So if it's possible, if there are things that you just don't do anymore, they're obsolete, they're just not your style, think about letting go. I mean, maybe you've moved on to new crafts and you don't really want to do those anymore, but maybe you might cycle back to them. It's really going to depend on what space you have available on whether or not you're going to want to let go of anything. But just know there are good places you can donate to. There's even tax write-offs. Maybe you could donate to a school or an organization. There's always places that are looking for craft supplies. So the next one is repackage things that you get. Oftentimes, for example, like the Stampin' Up! Stamps, they come in these. I'm coming back to you. Oftentimes they come in packaging that's bulky and thick, and you can, now in this case it works because these are those wooden stamps, and these are all sentiments. So I'm keeping those in there, but I could put them in those bigger trays, or if they're if they don't have don't have the blocks, if they're woodless, then they can fit in these folders. I bought these folders separately, and they stick to these plastic sheets. And in fact, I think these plastic sheets were separate. They might have been transparency sheets. So think outside the box in how you store them. You don't have to use the same packaging that they came in. Another little tip for minimizing packaging, I use those same types of, I use some of the same folders, actually some of the folders that, these framelets came in, and then I put a sheet of magnet in there. It had adhesive on the back, and I put it on some thick cardstock, and then I was able to fit 2 sets in one container. So try to minimize the packaging, because a lot of times the packaging isn't the most space effective. It might be good. Sometimes the packaging is great and it's helpful, and it depends on your space, but I find that these fit a lot more effectively. And I can fit more in if I just change it up and think about ways to do that. And then the next one is to create standard organizing rules. So for example, when I'm organizing anything that's color related, I always use the rainbow system, and that's Roy G. Biv, which is red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Now I combine blue and indigo because indigo is really a deep shade of blue, but and then I do neutrals separate from there. So if you create these systems where anything that you organize by color, you're going to use that same system, it's going to simplify your life a little bit because you'll know, okay, I always organize it by Roy G. Biv, neutrals, and so I know where to find it, whether it's acrylic paints or watercolor paints or paper. No matter what it is, you kind of have the same system that you use repeatedly. For anything that's color or pigment related, I also make it a rule to make swatches. Now in this case, this is how I store my pencils, and I organize them by sets of 3 because I like to use them in those triads of 3. So I organize it how I use it, and that's another tip. Organize it how you use it. So I organize my pencils that way, and then I create these little color swatches so that I can know exactly where the pencils go when I take them out. I can put them right back where they go. This just tucks behind there. I could glue it down if I wanted to, but I like to be able to take it out because I might want to use it to look at a project. And it just tucks behind the pencils. The other thing that I do when I'm using pencils with this setup, now you could use this even if your pencils were in a cup, and you can always have a swatch sheet anywhere. It doesn't have to be necessarily in with the pencils. But I always recommend doing some kind of swatch sheet for any pigmented medium. And then if you're using the pencils for a project, what I do, I actually have a project going, so I have some pencils out. But what I'll do is if I'm taking a break from the project, what I'll do is I'll put the pencils in reverse so that the lead goes the opposite way, and that way I know that that's an active pencil for my current project. Because sometimes I'm using so many pencils in a project and it's hard to keep track of, oh, which red did I use on this? So if I at least set them up this way, I know, okay, this one's part of this project. And then when I'm done with that project, I can reset them all the same direction. So just a little tip in keeping organized while you're working on projects. All right, next. Okay, make sure that if you have to work in a different location than where your stuff is stored. Now, this is in the same room, but these shelves are not right at my fingertips at my desks. So anything that I want to do there, I'm going to have to grab it from here and bring it over there. So I think I mentioned this as I was giving you the tour, having them in containers that are mobile where you can just grab the whole tray of whatever it is, the whole bin of all of your well inks, all of your, these inks or that inks. You can just grab the bin and bring it to your workstation. You don't have to keep getting up and going back, oh, I need a different color. You can just bring it, sort out what you need, and then you can put it back. You could also take a bin that is maybe your project bin, sort of a shopping cart that you go and collect. If you want to collect piecemeal because you don't want to have 15 bins sitting on your table, you can just put the things that you're going to be using. I actually have a bin that's just for that. That's what this bin I keep is. This is my shopping cart. So anytime I'm gathering supplies for a specific project, it not only allows me to go gather them and I can use this as I shop through my supplies, but it also is a container that can hold those things while I'm working on it and keeps it a little bit in order. All right, the next thing is consider a foldable cart. Now this cart, actually this is a foldable table, so you can consider a foldable table or a foldable cart. Let's see if I can getting this in this frame. This actually folds up and this whole thing collapses, and it collapses almost flat, not completely, and I can tuck it behind a door or anything. So if you don't have a designated art space and you can only work on it once in a while, maybe you have your closet is full of your art supplies, you could have a foldable rolling cart that maybe fits in that closet or behind the door or something like that, or under the bed. And then when you're going to actually be working on your art, you could bring out the folding cart, do your shopping, load your cart with the supplies that you're going to be working on for that project, and you could roll it anywhere you want in the house. Now, if you have a 2-level house, that's a little tricky if you're going to be working on 1 level and going up. But you could have someone help you carry it up the stairs. But it's just a way that you can have a mobile workstation. I have 3 layers with this particular card. I have 3 tables essentially that I can store all of my supplies on, and I don't have to take up the table that I'm working on with all the supplies. I can have that be the workstation because I may not have the room. Another thing you can do is bring like a card table, fold out table, and have extra workspace that way as well. So those are some tips if you just have limited workspace and you want to expand it. All right, the next tip is to always make things easy to put away. It's actually better to have them easy to put away than it is to have them easy to get, because when I want to do something with this hot glue gun, like I'm excited to do the job and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get to that glue gun. I know it's there. If I had to unbury it under 10 different layers, I'm going to do it because I want to get to it. But when I'm done, I'm not motivated. It's like, oh, I just have to put it back. And if I had to really bury it out of 10 layers of stuff, I might just be tempted to just throw the glue gun like on a table, waiting for me to have time to, unbury the bin that it goes in. So if you make it really easy to put back, it makes it easy to tidy up. It's less stressful. You know exactly where it goes, and it's easy to put back. You're gonna just more likely do it. That's just the reality of it. So make it really easy to put away, even if whatever that it means makes it harder to get to in the first place. Usually if it's easy to get to, it's easy to put away. They both usually work simultaneously. But yeah, make it as easy as possible to get it to tidy up at the end. All right, the next one is think outside the box. Okay, those hooks that I was trying to describe to you earlier, the 3M command strip hooks. And what they do is they have an adhesive that part of the hook hooks onto, and then the other part clips on the top of it, and they stick to just about any surface. And then to get them off, you just slowly pull the adhesive tab. And in theory, it doesn't ruin the surface because you just slowly pull it and the adhesive all sticks to itself and it comes off and there's no mess. Now, I've had problems with the longer it's on there, the more it adheres to the surface, and it can be problems. But usually I stick things on and I'm not planning to take them off. But they can go on anything. So on the side of your desk, on a wall near your desk to hook things on. Again, modify your carts. Totally MacGyver up. Think about things that just aren't typically art supplies and see how you can use them to MacGyver your workstation to work best for you. Even just sticking a nail in the side of a desk that maybe the desk isn't showing, and then you can hang some measuring a T square, hangs from there. So really maximize all of that space. And that goes along with also, if you're using deep shelves, make sure that you maximize the space. Measure twice, buy once. So measure the shelf, know the dimensions, know the width, know the height, know how you need to get two bins in too high, because that's all I want to do. And you can also measure the shelf length to get an idea, especially if you're moving from one storage system to another. You can always measure the length of your shelves, and then what size, how much shelving you need for the next area, or to change it up. So, pay attention to that. Use every square inch. Maximize your space. Okay. And I think that's an additional tip that I would add. The next thing, and I was also talking about the thinking outside the box. Also, page protectors, like I showed you, those are great organizers for small things. If you're doing little die cuts or little projects, organizing stencils, all of those things, page protectors are a great tool that, they're not an art tool, but they make great organizers. Okay, the next one is label stuff. So I would highly recommend a label maker, but even if you don't have that, even just if you write on stuff with a Sharpie or get an acrylic marker and paint it on. you know, make it look creative and artsy, whatever you want to do, but just make sure that you label things, especially if you don't have a clear container. If you have clear containers and it's very obvious what's in there, obviously you don't necessarily need to label. You'll get used to where things are and what the visual is. But if it's, that's another tip, is using clear containers so you can see what's inside. I like to see what's inside rather than having to read the label. So, but if you can't see inside, make sure you somehow label. Maybe you could even glue a sample on the outside of it, like I did with the flowers. You can, you know, just make a little representation so you can quickly just view your shelf and you know exactly what's in there. Another thing that I showed you before was I had made those stamp pages on those the sheets of and so let me, okay, I don't know why, I can't find my words. Is to stamp the page for this. Well, I also did something similar, and now this does take a little extra time up front. I grant you that. But I think a little time up front when I'm not trying to get something done is better than when I'm trying to be in the middle of creating and I can't get to it. But I also did something similar to with my punches. I did a little 12 by 12. This is a color of paper I probably would never use. So I just punched around the edge. All the punches that are in here are represented by a cutout on this page. So I can just quickly look at the top of this bin and see what shapes I have available without having to look at each punch. Because just looking at the punches, I wouldn't always be able to tell right away. So this is just a quick visual. Use quick visual aids, whether it's a label or a representation of whatever's in there, to help you to find whatever you're looking for quickly and easily. And the final tip that I have is use it or lose it. And what I mean by that is, now that you've decided what you're going to keep, find a way to challenge yourself to use things. Okay. What I did as a mixed media artist is I did a catalog of what I have. What are the tools, what are the techniques, what are the mediums that I have in my stash? And I wrote out basically kind of like a catalog of them. And so this way I can challenge myself to use them. So I use this sort of random number generator that I have on an app. And I know the number of categories I have. I can have it pick a random number and I can select from my list from that number. So for example, I have some organized by medium. I have gel pens, inks, acrylic inks, alcohol, inks, fountain, and I want to use these supplies. So I have 22 of these mediums to pick from. So I can do a random number generator on my phone between 1 and 22. It's going to pick, let's say 16, or you could pick a number if you don't have them memorized. But I think it's just, we might start cheating after we get to know our number system after a while. Let's say 16. Okay, so 16 is pastels. So now I'm challenging myself to use pastels in my project. Now, how you might do that with yarn is, let's say you have a wall of yarn and maybe you have 10 shelves of yarn, and you could say I'm going to pick a number between 1 and 10, and whatever's on that shelf, I'm going to try to use something that's on that shelf in my next project. So that's just a way that you can challenge yourself to use those things that you maybe don't go to or don't think of all the time. I also have a list of things that are related to creating texture. And so I can pick anything I want. I can say, okay, I want to randomly pick a color to use. I want to randomly pick a technique to use. I want to randomly pick a collage material to use. And then that way it'll allow me to maybe broaden what I use. I could also make it a challenge where I make a catalog of what I have, and then I say, okay, I'm going to use an item from each category until I've filled it up. So if you get a repeat number, you can't use it until you've checked all your boxes. So that's another way to just force yourself to use the things that you have in your stash that maybe you haven't used as frequently, or you didn't know you had, but now it's organized and you can find, and then that way you can find out if it's something that you want. Because if you keep selecting pastels and every time you select pastels, you cringe because you're like, I don't want to use pastels. Then maybe you can think, oh, maybe I just don't love pastels, and you can let them go. Okay, so that's my final tip. If you're gonna keep it, try to use it, try to challenge yourself in any way. You can even cut out your catalog and randomly select it. Like you can make little strips of paper with your, shelving numbers on it, or you could say, okay, I want to use some wool yarn and synthetic yarn. You can make these little categories and then have them randomly select in a jar. So that's another way to do it. You can do it any way, but just find a way to challenge yourself to use a little bit of everything, and then you'll really get to know what you love and what you can let go. All right, hope that helped with getting organized in your craft room. Now, once you get all organized, you'll have so much extra time to get creating. So happy organizing and happy creating. Thank you so much for joining me for part 2 of getting organized in the craft room. Please like, subscribe, or share if you like this content, and you can get the notes for the part 1 that is available at Creating Space Coastal, my shop there. You can get the notes if you want to have a little cheat sheet while you're organizing. So happy organizing and happy creating. Good night, everyone.